and Simon Ngure. A warm round of applause for him.
Thank you, Peter. We're going to look for somebody to talk about you one of these days. Because you talk about each one of us, and thank you for that really good welcome. I'm very excited to be here today because of each one of you. I believe that my life will not be of any use to anyone if I don't meet someone. And every person that I meet to me is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to sell what I have. So today you're my customers, and we're going to be talking about the product. The product is me. We'll talk about that a little later. I went to an interview once because I didn't like working for Kenji too much. And I don't think working for organizations is very satisfying. And I learned that when you work for organizations, you can get very easily disappointed. Because organizations tend to have a life of their own. The reason they are called organizations is because they have life in them. It's a set of organs that are actually working within a specific environment to produce specific results. And so, because they have a life of their own, when you work for an organization, you can get disappointed. But when you work for a leader, that's the time your life begins to have direction, because the leader is going somewhere. So I went to this interview, and they asked me, tell us who you are in one word. I thought for a little while, and then I said, honest. And they had books open, they were taking notes, and they closed the books, and they said, the interview is over, let's discuss the package. Let's discuss how much we're going to pay you. At the end of that interview, they said, do you have any questions? I said, yes. And I asked them, why did you ask me that one question? And they said, because everywhere we went in the world, this is an Australian multinational. If we did not find an honest person, we lost that business. That is how valuable honesty is to the world. Let me make one comment before we go into the presentation. That Christians do not know what they have. And they do not know how badly the world needs it. And so they're not marketing what they have. They're not marketing what they have. Okay, I hope this works. I think I've done something that's not supposed to be done. So let me do that. And let's see whether this works. Next. We still need the person. Oh, there we go. Okay, so to do the intro, we're going to go through this. I hope you've been an employee at one point or another. And you probably wonder, how does a good employee look like? This is a picture of your best employee. It's a person that is not just things they do, it is the person himself. Personality and character define attitude, the attitude of the person. It's not just degrees, it's not credentials, it's principles, it's values. And Dorothy has just mentioned that. It's a wonderful thing. When we call them values, it's because that's how we calibrate, how we make value. That's how Kengen makes its business. We don't make our business based on strategy. We make our business based on our values. We discovered that that's where the money comes from. It's our value level. It's like you have those things we used to do in physics, where you would put a very big stone on the other side which you can't lift, and then you have some kind of a pivot, and then you get this very long lever and you pull it down. What that thing you're pulling down is your value lever. And it can lift something heavier than you can by yourself. And this is the discovery that I think organizations will need to come to. That if your values are not creating value for you, maybe they have not been embedded in the people that need to practice those values. You can have good values. The values of Kenji, you can Google them. They are on the internet. Professionalism, integrity, safety, And those values, if I don't carry them, if I don't believe in them, if I don't live them, they're useless. So, what attitude do I have towards those values? Okay. It's a commitment rather than committees. It's not the congregate, it is the individual who comes to make the congregation with the rest of the individuals that actually makes the difference. Okay? I've got people I've worked with people who are problem oriented. You can discuss with them on one item, they will keep going back to what the problem is. The problem is, and the problem is, and you make a suggestion, the problem with that solution is, they're always problem oriented. They never solution oriented. Okay? And if you work with those people, you can imagine how much negative energy they bring if you haven't worked with one of them. But it's something that you need to think about. You need people who bring in positive energy, they bring solutions. Okay? And that also depends on the values that they have. So we've got two types of people, and we're meeting the first one now. The kind of people who see opportunities and they use them to nurture. They use them to build things. They use them to farm things. They use them to grow things. Okay? An example in the Bible is Jacob. Jacob knew the father loved good meat, so he decided to grow it in the backyard. Okay? He's a farmer. He takes something, multiplies it, grows it, increases it. Okay? Was the primary interest? And I said before, you work for a person, you'll be happy. I believe Jacob was working for the father. I don't know who else I was working for. Okay? So what's your personal or corporate value creation? Do you realize you're an investment? And you realize somebody wants a return? Okay. The worst employee is the opposite. All things about that person is what they can do. Have you ever met those kind of people? I have 4 degrees. The first one I got from this university, the second one I got from this one, and then after that, this is what I did, and this is what I do. I go to the gym 5 hours a day, and this is how I can. Everything is about them and what they can do. You can imagine how draggy that is. I mean, who does that inspire? It's not what you can do that is so important. It's not your aptitudes. One time we did an exercise and we were to write down how your good employees would look like. And we wrote all those good things, punctual, team spirit, and all those things. And then in the end, we put all of that down. We realized that the attitude things were 85%. The qualifications were only 15% of what made that person useful. An interesting discovery. So the people, these are the kind of people that we call corrupt, that came into the organization to hunt. Their work is to kill and eat. That's what Esau was doing. He didn't care where the next antelope came from. And likely to happen, and happens, the most important time for you to get that meat, you go hunting for it and you don't get it. And then what happens? The blessing is gone by the time you're back. Okay. So this is the worst kind of employee. Make sure that your organization is full of people who work for others, not those who work for themselves. I've worked with people who work for themselves. Even when we were on the desk, they were doing their own thing. They used the computer they were given by the company to do things for themselves. While we sat down and worked for the company, they were doing presentations for the next pitch because they were selling their own products. And they were there being paid by someone else to work for themselves. And I don't know whether you've ever met those kind of people. They're the worst kind of people to work with. They only work for themselves and they get paid by others. They're actually thieves. And I hope you're not one of them. Good to great findings are, in my assessment, 2 things. Number 1, the unique factor and variable that differentiates between good and great companies is the quality and nature of leadership in that company. Quality and nature. Quality and nature. And this is what Jim Collins said. Disciplined people, disciplined thought, and disciplined action are the most likely significant significant factors to determine the company's launch from good to great. All right. Right. Let me honor some people. Why am I honoring some people now? Because I didn't make myself. This is where I came from. God's mercy and grace. Next, my wife. My wife is possibly the person that I focus on most in this world. And this is the first person that I convert in everything I believe in. If I preach to her and she won't get converted, I abandon. Have you ever heard about Start at Home? Or you heard about Start in Jerusalem? Okay. Start at home, try that. Do you know why? Because if she won't help you, you're on your own. Okay, and I've got 3 daughters. 2 of our own and 1 that's adopted. And they're very good help. And they are always our case studies. Okay? If I'm ever going to leave somebody in charge of everything I ever did, it's going to be one of those 3. So I focus on them. And I tell them that everything that I own belongs to them, including myself. Have you ever thought that you will be left in someone's house? The next one is Bishop Kabiru. Bishop Kabiru is my mentor. This man has an education of class 8, the old class 8, not the new one, the old one. But I'm yet to meet a person with the wisdom, integrity, focus, consistency that Bishop Kabiru has. So I honor him everywhere I go. Okay, and the others are my colleagues at Kenji, starting with our former MD, Eddie Joroge. Some of you may know or have worked with him. He's the one that brought this paradigm to us. He said we would like to transform this company from a good one to a great one. That was in the year 2003. It took us 3 years to do the first initial public offer. It took us another couple of years to do the infrastructure bond. It took us another couple of years to transform the company from a focus of just doing power station to doing geothermal. It was a journey. And today, everyone, I think, in Kenya knows that there is something in that journey that has benefited this country. Impact at the national level. So this is what we're going to talk about. Transformation, and Patrick, thank you for covering transformation so well I don't have to talk about this. But let me focus you on 3 words. Transformation is a fundamental requirement that is driven by time, seasons, and the operating environment. If you feel you need to transform without a critical set of parameters that makes it impossible for you to survive without that transformation, then it's not transformation. You will approach it in incremental improvements. But transformation becomes very necessary when you have no other option. It is purpose-driven, it's a necessity, it's for survival. Without it, you're going to get destroyed, you're going to descend into chaos. And that's the verge on which Kenya is. And did you know that's the verge that Africa is on? If we don't do something about this, we have no choice. We did a study 5 years ago, and we discovered that at the rate that students are coming out of the university, and we're already beginning to see it, graduates crossing the border to become Al-Shabaab, in 10 years we said we shall have a natural revolution. It doesn't matter what kind of government we shall have. If we don't create wealth, if we do not create jobs, it's going to come. So we are in that space where we are on the verge of opportunity. And that verge of opportunity is also the verge of danger. And if we do not seize that opportunity now, then we will not have the opportunity to recover. That's why we need transformation. That's why we need transformation. In my view now, we have only this one government. And I do not take it for granted that they call it the Jubilee Alliance. Is it Jubilee what? Jubilee administration. So what that means to me is we either launch into liberty or we launch into bondage, but we have only one opportunity. And it's not a wonder that we found everything that we need to do that in terms of resources at the time that we found it. 6 years ago, we didn't have any oil. Now we do. We didn't have niobium. We didn't have all the minerals that we have. We didn't have geothermal at the scale that we have it now. I'm a drilling engineer by profession. I used to work the machines that drill. And we used to drill the old wells to 900 meters. Then we got a brand new rig and we were so excited we could drill to 2 kilometers. And then we thought we had got to the bottom of the reservoir. And then we bought new rigs because we had a problem with one of the wells, and we went to drill there, and we thought we had found something. And we started drilling to 3 kilometers, found a brand new reservoir underneath the old ones. And then when we found that new reservoir, it launched our prospects in that field from 45 megawatts to 1,000 megawatts in Ocarina. Now, why did that happen? I'm not very sure about why. I'm not very sure about how. But what I know is the opportunity that that has given this country. We can use it to eat and line our pockets. We can use it to pass the benefits to Kenyans. It rises and falls on leadership. Okay? So Kenya's survival demands deliberate transformation. And I believe that you're one of the most important people in driving that, because the reason you're here is because it's needed in you. Okay? So we need to change the mold. The way we make things in the world is that we either take a flat sheet and press it into form, or we take something that is going to become what we want and we melt it and we pour it into a mold. The mold injection process is the most popular manufacturing process. And this is the one that is mostly used. So you make a mold, and then you pour something into it, and it solidifies in the shape of what you want to come out of that mold. And that form is the mindset. It is the foundation. And therefore, our business and social principles need to be molded in a new form, in a new format. We need to pour what we are or who we are into a new kind of mold. We were poured into a mold that's defined by what we met in the past. And I like what Patrick said. The reason that we do not trust one another is where we came from. But guess what? When we get ready and fluid enough to move, we can be poured into something new. And that something new is an opportunity to become a different kind of product. So that that kind of product can be now suitable to survive in the new environment. Can be suitable to perform for the new tasks. Right? So, we need to move from unethical to ethical leadership. We need to move from profiteering to trust-based partnerships. In the year 2008, I was in Naivasha, and we had post-election violence, so that was one of the towns where we had the curfew. So what I did is on the first night when we had the curfew, I was in another little town, so I drove down in the evening, and when we heard there was curfew and what our kids were calling us from the town, we went to that little township where we were, and we bought milk, and we bought bread, and we bought all kinds of things. We came home and cooked the tea, and we worked on the bread, we bought scones and so on, and then we went to the police station when the curfew began. Me and my wife and one young man, we went to feed the children at the police station. When we got there, we thought we would find about 100 children. We had 400. That was Naivasha police station. So we walked out, drove out, and began to look for people to buy food from. So the first contingent of the armed forces that arrived from Gilgil, we talked to them, we said, okay, we're part of you. You keep helping on the side of violence and all these other kind of things, but we're looking for food for kids, so allow us to move. And they said, okay, we marked your car, and you have permission. I was the only person in that city that wasn't under the curfew. And they said, when the curfew starts, you come to the police station and we'll assign you duties. So I had duties from the police station every day of the curfew. Okay. And we did all kinds of things. We did salvage missions, we did all kinds of things. We went to meet with the people who were fighting, and I was one of the public speakers in some of those forums, because some of them were very well known. You could get introduced, and all kinds of things were happening. But this is what I discovered in summary. I discovered that if you do not build people, they will destroy the things that you build, which you own, which you do not allow them to co-own with you. An interesting concept. So we segregated what happened in Eldoret, where people got killed, and in Kisumu, where property was lost. And we discovered that in Kisumu, the people whose property was lost did not have local shareholding. It belonged to them. They made money from the community, but they did not involve the community in owning those things. And so this mindfulness thing, Dorothy, this being careful about others, this thinking about others as you're thinking about yourself, this making people partners with what you're doing, I think is fundamental. I think we've got the right set of parameters. I was saying to Patrick earlier, one of the most exciting things, I only changed the people I voted for. I wasn't going to vote for Jubilee. I changed it in the last 2 days. And do you know why? I started what President Uhuru Kenyatta was doing. He didn't go to the United States. He didn't go to Europe. He went to Tanzania. He went to Rwanda. He went to Uganda. Trying to lobby the countries around us to speak one language. To begin looking at resources together. Today, you may have heard, we're working with the presidency to introduce industrial parks in our country. Energy company, industries, yes, makes a lot of sense. Because when we go negotiate with him, he goes and negotiates that if we put a factory for nuclear products in Naivasha, then Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Southern Sudan, and Ethiopia will buy from that factory. And it makes sense to put the factory there. If I didn't have that opportunity, guess what? They wouldn't come. They wouldn't come. We're working on a project today, and I think you've heard about it in the news, where we're bringing in somebody who is a multinational. He's been manufacturing from Singapore, making garments. He's got 30% of the American market and 40% of the British, the European market. And they're relocating to Kenya. We're giving them 1,000 acres. We're working with them, bringing the railway there, bringing the road there. Do you know how many graduates that's going to take? 40,000 graduates. If we could not be able to show that something unique can happen without corruption, where they can trust the people they are working with, that wouldn't happen. Yesterday, we just got an intro of $100 million to do a wind power project. The people opened, they said, we want to work with you because we can trust. We've seen what you can do in our country, we want to work with you because we can trust. $100 million. Why? Trust. Believe me, it pays. It's been a 10-year journey, but it pays. Are we together? All right. So what's the Kenyan story? We got shareholders that wanted to return. We have new competition. Remember, those were the days we're going to bring in power from South Africa and later on from Ethiopia. We had new companies coming into the generation space. We have market risk because of imports. Demand was going faster than we could supply. This was all the issues. I've put them here. This is one of the slides that you may not have. That's why I have put that red block there. Yeah. But Kenyan need to transform. Setting a clear strategic and operational direction was very key, because that performance, pressure to perform, and the significant demand growth, and the changes in the regulatory environment, and the cognition, the regionalization of the sector were things that caused us to realize we're going to go into a new space. We need to do things differently. Okay? And so what we needed was a drastic change so that we can survive in the future. Okay? We needed to reposition so that we could retain our dominant position in the market. And we needed a change in strategy. Now, did you know that there is a new law in town that says that if you own more than 40% of any sector, then you are a monopoly, and you will not be allowed to operate in Kenya? Kenya is at 80%. Regulatory regime. So what are we doing? We are focusing ourselves to become more owned by others. So we're doubling the number of shares, and pretty soon after that, we'll double that. And then we'll offer those shares to people. And one of the interesting projects we're doing is working with local communities to co-own the power stations with us. First case is going to be in Meru, where we're going to go do a wind power plant. We want local people to come in with their 100 shillings, 200 shillings. We want them to co-own the power station. Do you think that will be a good model? Oh, I bet you. You know what? They will never have any need to stop those power stations. Because every time that wind turbine is turning, it's making them money. Right. All right, so I'm going to rush through this. So what was the strategy? I'll show you the tempo in a minute. We had 3 horizons with specific target of reaching 3,000 megawatts by 2018. Shall we be there? Not 2018, I will be honest with you. 2019, we'll reach 3,000 megawatts. How do I know that? It's because we've got the strategies and we've got all the calculations in. Why is it that it's 2019? Because when the Jubilee administration came in, they set a 5,000 megawatt agenda. And that 5,000 megawatt agenda, we got allocated 800 megawatts. So what we've been doing is to finish our 800 megawatts ahead of the other megawatts so that we can begin to take that piece. So we're taking it from the back. So it's not 2018, it's 2019. Interesting. You can go around all your problems if you've got the right people with the right mindset to work on solutions. Okay. So we said we need only 6 people reporting to the managing director, and we needed a board committee to focus on this transformation. And this is the temple. Why do we call it a temple? Because it's like a house. You've got a vision there, and you need a vision to lead the way all the time. Without a vision, people perish. And then we've got the capital planning and execution bureau with 3 focus areas. We've got the regulatory management bureau, which is what I led in Kenyan until they expanded my functions. And that's to make sure that the business works. And the operational excellence bureau is to make sure that you're doing things at the best that they can be done. You've got the best quality people running your power stations. You've got the best kind of training. Not the kind of people that the other day one of the airlines had a pilot that had a problem in the head and he crashed the aircraft. The kind of power stations we're putting up 18 billion a piece, you don't want that guy there who replaces. Because if he crashed it, guess what? This country's tariffs will be back. Only one of those units will be back up by another 15%. Lost opportunity. Okay. And the bottom here is working with the performance management, technology, innovation, and so on. All kinds of things. All right. All right. So these are the horizons in which we work. First 5 years was to stabilize the situation in Kenya, and that's where we ended our first story. We wanted to make sure no more power rationing. We've met demand. We've stabilized the costs. We wanted to remove this issue of burning fuel away from this. So, and we were saying, we want to deliver the current projects, and we want to be able to launch a foundation which helps us go into the next horizon, which is to create sustainable power growth in Kenya. Why did we say power growth? Let me tell you how that works. Because if you don't have power at the right price, people don't build factories, so you can't have growth. So we wanted to bring that price down. Okay? And I believe we are at a sweet spot. Today, in a product that's manufactured in China and exported to Kenya, we can break even by manufacturing it here at the current price. We have other issues to fix, like the rail, the road, but that's already achieved. Power, no longer an issue. Interesting. Okay, let's move on. So we began with recruitment and did migration in 2008. Then we raised the 25B that helped us in 2009 to go where we were going. And then we won a few awards. Fastest plant, we won that award, I think, in 2011 in Spain. That was a global award. And then recently, we won all the major continental awards in Africa just a couple of weeks ago. We saw the president issue us a congratulatory message. Best utility in Africa, best green project in Africa. That was 3 weeks ago. And that's the 280 megawatts project, which the president has kept coming to inaugurate the 2 units. We've done the first wellhead technology, which is condensing in nature. This is the first breakthrough in the world. We were bold enough to do it. We got taken everywhere, to the cleaners and back. People saying that's a corruption, that's a mega scandal. Yeah? I negotiated this contract. I actually signed it when our CEO was away. It's the safest of the contracts that you can get in an innovation space, which involves R&D. And when people came and found out what was in that contract, many of them were ashamed. And that case has been stopped because people don't want it to go ahead. We've done 45 megawatts of wellheads, condensing wellheads in Kenya, the only place where they exist. I'm going to 17. Okay? So what have we done? We've cut the fuel bill by 25 billion a year. That's 2 billion a month. Okay. We've lowered the cost of power 30% across the customer classes. Geothermal energy has moved from 15 to 50% contribution in energy. And you know what? Geothermal is not affected by weather. So whether it rains or not, and that's why we don't have power ration. In the old days, because most of our power stations were hydro, then if we had a problem with the rains, then we would have to power ration. Now we don't have to do that. Okay. So what happened in the last 6 months? After December, profits were up 300%. I don't know what's going to happen end of June. So keep watching that space. All right then. This is the graph that we drew for the Ministry of Energy. We said this is what we want to do, and we wanted to reach a 30% reduction about here. And when they found out what we were doing, this graph you may have noticed that it's being drawn now to 30%, 37% reduction in industrial tariffs and 47% reduction in domestic tariffs. What do we need to do this? We're somewhere around here now. We're very close here. But what has happened is that we achieved the 9 cents a little earlier, and that is why we're telling Kenyans, and you saw it in the newspapers this week, I think it was in yesterday's paper, that these power tariffs have stabilized. So we're telling the industrialists, you can come now. The one other thing that I tell them is, if you come to Olkari, we'll give you constant cost of power for 50 years. Because we've got the efficiency means to claw back between 4 and 5% efficiencies every year, and because of that, we can keep the price constant. 15 years. Give them a predetermined, secure, foreseeable future. All right. So I think I've already said this. Watch this space. If you haven't bought the Kenyan share, you are a little late. Watch this space. We've drilled 72 of the 80 wells that we need for the next development, 350 megawatts. We hit that target early in time. So we're going to be at about 420. So we're not short of fuel anymore. Okay? And so, if you want success, then you can create leaders. And I believe that God is the best leader. He said, he put the infrastructure together, and then he said, let us make money. He was creating a leader. And he said, let this man have dominion, let him rule, let him stand up, let him control what happens. Okay? Man failed in the first test of leadership. And I like what Patrick said. All of us fail before we start. Okay? All of us are born failures. But there is an opportunity to transform. And that's the beauty of talking about transformative leadership. Okay? So morals, standards, yes, and values. Dorothy talked about this, guiding principles. That's what gives every person direction. In Kenyan, we like a lot of people, a lot of arrows, going in the same direction because we agreed on the direction. We agreed on the values. Not one person believes in integrity and the next one doesn't. So in the committee, for example, that I chair, the tender committee, the first thing that I got them to agree on is that we're not going to do any corrupt deal. That's the first thing. We've got to agree which direction are we going, and the direction is not the actual individual tender. The direction is the guiding principles. No corruption. If we are doing an evaluation, you do not get contacted and do not disclose it. Okay? Those were the guiding principles. And that's why none of the projects that we did had any scandals. Number two, we disclose it from the very beginning. When people come to tender, if I stand up on that podium, I tell them this is a zero corruption project. You don't put in a cent for facilitation. Kenyan will do the facilitation. Number two, we tell them we're going to bear the brunt of your troubles. You can't get things through the port. Make a phone call to me. I give my cards, I give my personal commitments. Why do I do that? Because I'm committed at a personal level. And then I go sell that paradigm to every person in office. That's what I did with the previous principal secretary. That's what I did with Mr. Jerome. That's what I did with the cabinet secretary. You've got to go sell what you have. What you have. Okay? And don't fear. Don't fear. It works. It works. It doesn't mean you won't have trouble, but it means you will have backup. reasons you saw my face in the newspapers was possibly because of the court one. But we did it properly. So to court and back, no doubt. They'll put my name up and say, oh, we know, you were right, you know. My committee members' first meeting, I told them, if you eat, I guarantee you, 48 billion shillings a year, that's the revenues of that one project. That's a lot. I told them, you eat 10, 15, 20, 50 million, you do not deliver to that person that gives you the money, I guarantee you two things. Number one, he either wins and you wreck it, he loses and he blows the whistle on you. And when that happens, I, as your leader, will disown you. And I will actually help them take you to the cleaners. It almost got there. Luckily, my team listened to me. Okay. Ethical leaders need both ethics and values. And I think we've covered this. These are the different types of leadership styles, and this is textbook stuff, so I won't go on too much into this, but the last one is important. Transformational leadership is the God kind of leadership. And he does it by being pleasant. He does it by being pleasant. Let me pause here a little bit and talk about a paradigm that I found interesting in the discussion today. When I was looking for God, because I was looking for God in my early days, I looked for him in physical things. I'm an engineer, you can imagine. So I looked for him in physical things. I believed if God could make things that have substance, that are physical, that he must be that physical. That's what I believe. So I didn't want anybody to tell me believe, I wanted somebody to tell me touch. I came from the Thomas kind of school. Yeah? So I wanted something that I could touch. I believed that there was a continuum between the spiritual and the physical. And today I believe that there is a continuum between what you believe and your lifestyle. Who you are physically, where you are, what you do. They're interconnected. They're interconnected. Recently we started discovering things in what they are calling the new type of physics about the boson particle and so on that cements matter together. They are not quite sure what it is. We knew about it when we were in the first year in the university because we were discussing this with an exchange professor who had come from Oxford University. He said, there's something that's happening in this world we don't understand. The protons stay together in the nucleus and they are positively charged, they are pulling apart, but somebody is holding them together. And the electrons are going round and they're using energy and yet they're not using energy. There's something strange happening here at the atomic level. And then he went on to say, it's replicated through the universe, the way the earth goes around the sun, and so on. He explained this, and I began to look for God in the physical stuff. That was first year in the university. Many years later, and a number of blinds in my pocket, I discovered Jesus Christ. And I signed up. And I haven't been disappointed. It's not a moment to see. Every single question that I had, I found an answer by going back to the origin of everything that's happened here. Now he is present everywhere. We did a calculation with an atheist. He's from Nicaragua. He believed that nothing could be done. But this man is the most brilliant mind I've ever met. You sit with him, give him a physical problem, he's an engineer, and he's talking about other things, and he says, hang on a minute, I found a solution to your problem. His mind works in dimensions I do not understand. He's been doing calculations in the mind when we are discussing other things, and he's found the solution. Then he says, this is how to solve it, and gives you a whole line of calculations. It was going on in his mind. Out of the 100 geothermal patents that there are in the world, 96 are owned by companies. 4 are owned by this one guy. He's a powerhouse by himself. He was an atheist. And we were talking about issues to do with God, and then I explained to him how I found Jesus Christ, and then he got on the airplane, and when he landed on the other side, he made a phone call. He said, Simon, in the aircraft, I found your Lord Jesus Christ. Is that physical? Everything you do needs to have a foundation. It's present. All right. So how do we value organizations? The value of the organization is the sum total of all the actions and the behaviors of the human capital who both live and work in that organization. The people who work there and the people who live there. I don't have the time to go into those two principles. But if you have an organization where nobody lives, it has no life. The people who live there are the people who actually live that as their life. When I work for Kengen, and then this is how I choose who my employers are, it's not based on salary, it's based on, will I have an opportunity to inject life there? I live in Kengen, and I give everything I have in Kengen. Why? Because in Kengen, there are people who I'm committed to, not the organization, but the people. Because when the people cross over and come to my side, we can together achieve something much, much greater than I by myself. All right? So leaders are more definitive in defining that operational and that value than the operational staff. And true sustainability will depend on how successful the leadership is in recruiting and retaining that unique value, human capital. That unique value, human capital. Right? So examples, I've got a lot of examples here, and these you can take home. But I want to talk about, which number is this? Number 3, unique corporate and shared values, both at home, in your organization. You need some business ethics. You need some trust drivers. The trust drivers is what drives faith. It's what drives faith. We had an issue in the old administration because the geothermal development company, which was new at that time, I'm sure that they hadn't had the chance to build a reputation, were to be given $450 million by the Exim Bank of China to drill wells, the wells we're drilling in Okari. And they came and did a due diligence on the geothermal development company. They came to Kengen and did a due diligence, and they said, we want to work with these people. And they were told, no. You can't work with Kengen anymore. We actually moved the drilling work to geothermal development company. So you can't work with these people anymore. So you've got to work with this. And they went back and did their calculations, looking at the human people, resources, and what interest, and they wrote back. They said, I'm sorry. If we cannot work with Kengen, we're not coming to Kenya. And the government finally called a small meeting, and then we were before parliamentary committee, and finally they said, okay, we'll allow it to happen this once. Out of 80 wells, only 8 have not been drilled. We are about $45 million below budget. The right kind of people will bring you the right kind of results. All right, so to build successful businesses, the answer is simple. Build people. Build people. I believe in people. In war, you may need robots, because there you can have unrewarded obedience. Gets blown up, who cares? It was just money. But in peace, people are the best builders. But you need them to be engaged to get proper performance. If you want prosperity, you need a critical mass of both man, infrastructure, and technology. But all this is operated by human beings to meet human needs. If we want focused on Kenya's needs at the human level, that is why I can talk about unemployment with a passion. I can talk about what it will create if we do not deal with it. I mean, imagine. I don't know how your dad took you to school, but I'll tell you what my dad did. He sold almost everything we had. And then imagine I come out of school and I can't get a job. What does that do to him? Let alone what it does to him. You dare preach to me about being ethical when I've been out of work for 5 years and there is no chance in sight to get a job? I asked our cabinet secretary, who is right now in recession. Is it called recession or what? I asked him, how many people have you managed to get employed? And he said, 1. I said, if you being a cabinet secretary can only get 1 person employed in 1 year, how about those who do not have a cabinet secretary on their side? And I told him, you've got to take our case to Boke. and to cabinet that we must do industries in Okada. Finally, he did. And I thank God for people like that. So speak. There's some people who are willing to listen. Okay. Be the product that you want to sell. Can we do business ethically? Yes. But be the product. Be the product. Yeah. And vision, transform, be the one that's made ethical, be the one that carries the values, and then tell and show how to get there. Get converts. And then teach. What all this? Monitor what's going on with those people. Reinforce. Enrich. Empower. So, what's the role of business? What's the place of business in leadership? You know, I keep telling people that when God says to man, increase, dominate, multiply, that's business language. This world wasn't designed for a place of redemption. Redemption came in as plan B to bring us back to where we were supposed to be. Plan A was always business. And when Jesus came, Luke chapter number 2, he said, I must be about my Father's business. The first words that were recorded out of his mouth. God in heaven is thinking business. What are you thinking? Thank you, sir. What are you thinking? Every opportunity that we have to make money will come from problems that the human beings have. If you make something that I don't need, thank you, sir, thank you, madam, but I walk away. But if I need it, you have me. So the human problems we have are the sources of that business. I'm thinking of a model that can help us deal with Al-Shabaab. It's a business. Guys, and some people already know it's a business. I'm doing a research, and the last person I interviewed 1.5 days ago, he told me that you cannot get the Al-Shabaab out of Kismail. They're making so much money. Other people are willing to finance them and give them weapons so that they can be in place. Because they're making so much money out there. It's a business. Why are they fighting Kenyans? Are you sure they're fighting Kenyans or they're just expanding their business model? All right. Let's keep going. Make a decision to be ethical, lead from the front. Grow, find mentors, find coaches, find help, overcome temptation. I already went through the lesson. Corruption is dangerous. It's dangerous to you. Fortunately, what you sow comes back to you. What you sow comes back to you. I did one project. There were currently 2 projects. I was the engineer in charge. And this I did with all the contractors. All the contractors we signed up, we went to what they call a kick-off meeting. And so I said, okay, who's the leader of the delegation? They would show me the leader. And I would say, I have a proposition to give you. I will not give you anybody to employ. I will not ask you for any money. I will not ask you to help me in any way. You will not cut corners. You will give me best quality. You will give me best price. You will not cheat, and you will not steal from me. But I will pay you for all work that's done fairly. Can we shake hands? And I got all 5 contractors to shake hands. All. Finally, one contractor brought back a claim at the end of the project. 745 million Kenya shillings. It was a claim. So we sat down to negotiate this, and I remember we shook hands with these guys. So I called him and said, Chairman, please let's have a small break. We walked out. I told him, do you remember we shook hands? He said, oh no. I told him, oh yes. We shook hands. I told him, you go back in there and tell us how much money we owe you. I will keep my deal. You get paid. You keep your deal. Don't steal. You know what he told me? He said, it's 35 million. I said, provide the documentation. The case is closed. We went back inside. From 745 million to 35 million. Ensure that you lay the groundwork early. Don't wait to negotiate until later. Do that early. So that what you sow will come back to you. All right. It's dangerous to your customers. Do you know lies are very expensive? And a bad name is even worse than not having tried in the first place. The cost is high.